It was a Friday evening when everything seemed to shift. Most of the office had already emptied out, the hum of computers and faint buzz of fluorescent lights filling the silence. Emma stayed behind, her desk lit by the glow of her monitor. Was determined to finish a presentation due on Monday. Though her tired eyes begged for rest, she thought she was alone until the sound of footsteps broke the stillness. She glanced up, startled, and saw Ryan walking toward her with 2 steaming mugs in his hands. "You've been working too hard," he said softly, placing one on her desk. Emma blinked at the unexpected gesture. "You didn't have to." "No," he interrupted gently, "but I wanted to." Their hands brushed as she reached for the mug, a fleeting touch that sent a quiet jolt through her. She pulled back quickly, but her heart betrayed her, thudding faster than before. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The office, once filled with chatter and ringing phones, now felt strangely intimate. The shadows in the corners seemed to fade as Ryan leaned casually against her desk, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "You always stay late," he said after a pause. "Why?" Emma gave a small laugh, trying to mask the sudden nervousness in her chest. "I guess I just like finishing what I start. Maybe I'm a little too responsible for my own good." Ryan tilted his head, studying her. "Or maybe you just care more than most people do." The words lingered in the air, heavier than they should have been. Emma lowered her gaze to the coffee, stirring it absently as though it could distract her from the way her cheeks warmed under his attention. "Ryan," she began, her voice faltering. She wanted to say something to name the electricity that had been building between them for weeks. But the words tangled inside her. He stepped closer, not too close, but enough that she could feel the quiet pull of him, the space between them charged with something unspoken. His eyes searched hers, hesitant but sincere. "Emma," he said quietly, "I don't want to cross a line. I respect you too much for that, but the truth is, being around you, it doesn't feel like just work anymore." Her breath caught. She had told herself she was imagining things, that his gestures and words were nothing more than kindness. Chaos. But hearing him say it out loud made the walls she had so carefully built tremble. Emma's heart pounded. Part of her wanted to lean into the warmth of what he was offering, to admit she felt it too. But another part screamed at her to stop, to remember the pain of her last heartbreak. The risk of letting herself believe again. She looked at him, her lips parting as if to speak, but before she could, a sharp voice echoed down the hallway. "Is someone still in here?" "Okay." Emma flinched, the moment shattering like glass. It was the janitor making his evening rounds, his footsteps growing closer. Ryan stepped back almost instantly, the careful expression on his face returning to something neutral. He gave her a small, reassuring nod, as if to say, "It's okay. You don't have to answer right now." The janitor appeared briefly, offered them both a polite smile, and continued down the corridor. But the interruption had done its work. The air that moments ago had felt heavy with possibility now felt uncertain. Filled with silence, neither of them knew how to break. Emma cleared her throat, trying to steady herself. "I should probably finish this project," she said, her voice quieter than before. Ryan nodded. "Of course, I'll let you get back to it." He lingered for a moment longer, as if he wanted to say more, but then he turned and walked away, his footsteps fading. Until she was alone again, Emma stared at the door long after he was gone. Her chest ached with something she didn't know how to name. The words he'd left hanging in the air pressed against her, demanding an answer she wasn't sure she was ready to give. That night, back in her apartment, Emma tried to lose herself in anything that would distract her: music, TV, even the book that had been sitting untouched on her nightstand. But no matter what she did, her mind returned to Ryan's voice. "It doesn't feel like just work anymore." She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, torn between the ache of longing and the sharp edge of fear. She wanted to believe in him, to believe that what she felt wasn't just in her head. But what if she was wrong? What if opening her heart again only left her broken all over? The next morning, she walked into the office with her guard up. She told herself to act normal, to treat Ryan the way she always had before. But when their eyes met across the room, her resolve wavered. His gaze was steady, warm, but he didn't push. He didn't bring up what he had said. Instead, he gave her space as if he understood she needed time. And somehow, that made her want to trust him even more. Still, a question gnawed at her. What exactly had he meant? What did he want from her? And more importantly, what did she want? Emma didn't know yet. But she knew one thing for certain. The words Ryan had spoken weren't going away. They had planted something inside her, something that was growing. No matter how much she tried to ignore it, Monday morning arrived with its usual weight. The office buzzed as employees hurried to their desks. Laptops clicked open, phones rang, and conversations overlapped. But Emma moved through the noise as though she were somewhere else entirely. Her thoughts hadn't left Friday evening, hadn't let go of Ryan's words or the way the air between them had felt charged. Alive, and then suddenly broken by interruption. She avoided him at first. She buried herself in emails, meetings, and endless to-do lists, hoping that if she stayed busy enough, she wouldn't have to face the storm inside her. Yet she felt his presence anyway, the soft scrape of his chair, the steady rhythm of his typing, the quiet way he carried himself through the day, diet by late afternoon. Emma returned to her desk after a meeting and noticed something different. On top of her keyboard lay a folded note. Her heart jumped as she picked it up, recognizing Ryan's handwriting instantly. "Whatever you feel, I'll respect it, but I meant every word." That was all. No pressure, no demands. Just honesty, simple and steady. Emma stared at the words, her chest tightening. He was giving her space, offering her a choice instead of pushing for one. It wasn't what she had expected, and somehow, that made her trust him even more. The rest of the day passed in a blur. She wanted to talk to him, but every time she found the courage, someone else was nearby or the timing felt wrong. By the time evening came, most of the office had emptied, leaving only a few lingering employees. Emma found herself hesitating by the door, her bag over her shoulder. When she saw Ryan locking up across the hall, she could have walked away, pretended the note hadn't happened. But something in her, something she hadn't felt in years, told her to stop running. Taking a steadying breath, Emma stepped outside into the cool air. The city buzzed softly around them, headlights streaking past, the scent of rain still fresh from an earlier shower. Ryan was at the entrance, slipping his keys into his pocket when she called his name. "Ryan." He turned, his expression calm. But searching as though bracing himself for whatever she might say, Emma hesitated, words tangling in her throat. She wanted to be brave, but bravery had cost her before. Still, looking at him now, she realized something important he hadn't. Just said the words. He had shown them day after day, in small, careful ways. And that mattered more than any grand gesture. Her voice was quiet when it finally came. "I keep telling myself not to feel this way, but I do." Ryan froze, his eyes softening as her words sank in. Relief and something deeper flickered across his face. He stepped closer, slowly, as though giving her every chance to retreat. "Then let's not fight it," he whispered. The world seemed to pause. The sounds of the city faded, leaving only the quiet space between them. Emma felt her heart open, cautiously, but undeniably, as if all the walls she had built were crumbling in the presence of his steady patience. She smiled, small but real, and for the first time in years it wasn't tinged with fear. They didn't rush. There was no dramatic kiss under the city lights, no sweeping moment that belonged in a movie. Instead, there was something gentler, something truer. The quiet certainty of two people finally acknowledging what had been growing between them all along. Over the next weeks, their connection unfolded slowly. They shared lunches that turned, into long conversations, inside jokes that lingered long after work ended, and silent moments that spoke louder than words. But Emma couldn't help but wonder what exactly had made him hold back at first. His patience was unusual, deliberate. One evening, as they walked together down a quiet street, she finally asked, "Why me?" "Why now?" she said softly. Ryan glanced at her, his expression thoughtful. "Because you're different, Emma. Because when I look at you, I don't just see someone I work with. I see someone who makes the world feel lighter. And because I wanted to be sure that you felt it too." His honesty left her breathless. He hadn't wanted to risk rushing her, hadn't wanted to be another person who took without giving. That kind of patience, that kind of carrot, wasn't something she had ever experienced before. For Emma, it had started with a simple compliment, words she almost brushed off. But it had grown into something she hadn't expected, the chance to believe in love again. And perhaps that was the greatest surprise of all, that the smallest moment could change the course of her heart. That night, as they walked beneath the glow of street lamps, Emma slipped her hand into his. It felt natural, like it had been waiting to happen all along. Emma never expected her Monday morning to change anything, for her Mondays were usually heavy, weighed down by the routine of work and the quiet ache of a life that felt too predictable. She lived in a small apartment in Seattle, with a view of gray skies that always seemed to match her mood. Her mornings followed the same rhythm: wake up, make coffee, get dressed, and head to the marketing office where she worked as a project coordinator. That particular Monday, she walked into the office earlier than usual. The building was still quiet, the kind of silence that made every sound echo a little louder. She placed her bag on her desk and walked toward the break room to pour herself another cup of coffee, already dreading the long list of emails waiting. For her, the coffee machine hummed softly and Emma leaned against the counter, rubbing her temples. She hadn't slept well the night before, tossing and turning as memories of the past, especially of a love that had ended badly, crept into her thoughts. She was tired of the way those memories still haunted her, and tired of pretending she was fine when inside she still carried pieces of heartbreak. As she waited for her coffee, she didn't hear the footsteps at first. Then a calm but warm voice broke the silence. "You have a way of making Mondays look easier than they are." Blinked and turned her head. Standing in the doorway was Ryan, the new hire from the design team. He'd joined the office just a few weeks earlier, and though she'd seen him around, they hadn't spoken much beyond polite greetings. He wasn't flashy, not the type who tried too hard to get attention, but he carried himself with quiet confidence, his dark hair slightly messy, his sleeves rolled up like he was always ready to get to work. Emma let out a soft laugh, partly out of surprise. "That's a first. Usually Mondays and I don't get along at all." Ryan smiled, and it wasn't the kind of smile people wore just to be polite. It was genuine, easy, the kind that made his eyes soften in a way that felt personal. He grabbed a mug from the shelf and poured himself coffee, too. His movements calm, unhurried. Emma, still holding her cup, tried to shake off this strange flutter in her chest. It was just a compliment, nothing more. People said nice things all the time, but there was something about the way he said it, like he had noticed her, really noticed her, that unsettled her in a way she hadn't felt in years. The rest of their exchange was brief. He wished her a good morning, and she returned to her desk. But no matter how hard she tried to focus on the emails piling up, her mind kept circling back to that one line. "You have a way of making Mondays look easier than they are." It wasn't the words themselves, but the way they lingered in the air, the way they made her feel seen. And that was dangerous. By lunchtime, she found herself stealing small glances. Across the office, Ryan sat a few desks away, absorbed in his work. He didn't look at her much, but when their eyes did meet by accident, he gave a small nod and a smile that made her heart trip over itself again. Emma tried to scold herself. Don't read into this. He's just being kind. After all, she knew better than to let her guard down. She had been in love before, deeply, with someone who had promised forever. But forever had ended with betrayal, leaving her more careful, more guarded. She had told herself she was done with romance at work, done with anything that could blur the lines between personal and professional. And yet, here she was, replaying a single sentence in her head like it mattered. That evening, as she walked home under the fading light, the city buzzing quietly around her, Emma thought about Ryan again. She thought about how he didn't seem like the type who spoke without meaning it. He had noticed something in her that most people didn't take the time to see. And she wondered if that was the beginning of something or just a moment that would fade like so many others. But when she closed her apartment door and set her bag down, the silence of her home pressed against her. She realized she was smiling, just a little, at the memory of his voice. She shook her head, almost laughing at herself. It's just a compliment, Emma. That's all. Still somewhere deep inside. A quiet voice whispered back. Or maybe it's not, and though she didn't know it yet. That one unexpected compliment was the start of a story she couldn't have predicted. A story that would test her heart, challenge her fears, and bring her face to face with something she hadn't let herself hope for in a long time. Soft hook. Could a single compliment really open the door to something more? Emma didn't know then, but soon she would. The weeks that followed brought a shift Emma didn't expect. It wasn't dramatic, not something anyone else would notice. But she felt it every day. Ryan had a way of being present without trying. Too hard, he wasn't the kind of person who dominated conversations or filled the room with loud energy. Instead, he was thoughtful, always listening, always noticing the little details most people missed. Emma began to catch on. One morning, she mentioned offhandedly how much she missed her favorite cafe croissants since moving across town. 2 days later, she found a small paper bag on her desk with a sticky note that said, "Not the same, but close. Thought you'd like it." Inside was a warm pastry from a bakery near the office. She looked up to see Ryan at his desk, pretending to focus on his computer, though the faintest smile curved at his lips when he saw her reaction. It wasn't just the croissant. It was the way he remembered things. The way he noticed when she was quieter than usual and would casually ask, "Rough day," without pressing further. Or how he'd offer to help with small tasks, not in a way that felt intrusive, but simply supportive. Emma told herself not to think too much of it. After all, kindness didn't always mean more, but her heart wasn't listening. It had been. So long since someone had looked at her with that kind of attentiveness, with a quiet care that felt almost protective. One afternoon, the two of them left the office at the same time. The streets were busy, people rushing past in the cool autumn air. Emma pulled her coat tighter around her, while Ryan walked beside her. Keeping his usual calm pace, they chatted about small things at first, the latest project, a funny email from a client, but as they reached the corner where their paths split, he slowed and glanced at her. "You make the place feel lighter, you know that?" Emma stopped walking for a second, caught off guard. The words sank in, heavier than he probably realized. She turned her head, her breath catching in her throat. "What do you mean?" Ryan shrugged slightly, his hands in his pockets. "It's just, you bring something into the office. People work better around you. I work better around you. It doesn't feel so heavy when you're there." For a moment, Emma couldn't find the right words. Compliments were one thing, casual, safe. But this felt different. It was personal, almost intimate. She forced a small smile. "That's kind of you to say." But her chest ached with an emotion she didn't want to name. That night, alone in her apartment, she thought about his words over and over again. She thought about the sincerity in his voice, the way he had said it so simply, without expectation. She hadn't realized how much she missed being seen, like that scene, not for her efficiency or her skills, but for who she was. Yet, with the warmth came fear. Emma had learned the hard way what it meant to open her heart too quickly. Years ago, she had given her trust to someone who promised to cherish her, only to find herself betrayed. The scars of that loss were still fresh enough that she carried them like armor, so she told herself to be careful, to not mistake attention for affection, to not let herself hope for something that might never come. Still, she couldn't deny that something had shifted inside her. Ryan wasn't just a coworker anymore. He had become a presence she looked forward to, a voice that lingered even after she went home the following week. Emma sat in a meeting across from Ryan, their manager, droned on about deadlines, but Emma found her attention slipping. Ryan was taking notes, his brow furrowed slightly in concentration. At one point, he glanced up and caught her staring. For a heartbeat, neither of them looked away. Then, almost too quickly, Emma dropped her eyes to her notebook, her cheeks warm. But she felt his gaze linger for a second longer before he returned to his work. Her heart raced. She hadn't felt that kind of spark in years, the kind that was quiet but undeniable, the kind that could grow into something if she let it. That evening, she sat on her couch, her laptop open but forgotten. Instead, she stared at the city lights. Outside her window, her mind replaying every moment with Ryan over the last few weeks. She thought about the croissant, about the way he remembered her small complaints and turned them into gestures of kindness, about the softness in his voice when he said she made the office lighter, and most of all, about the unspoken question that lingered every time their eyes met. Emma pressed her hands against her face, torn between longing and fear. She wanted to believe it could be something, but she couldn't bear the thought of another heartbreak. What she didn't know, what she couldn't yet imagine was that Ryan was holding something back too, something he hadn't told her yet, and that secret could change everything.